stolen anything. You've given me everything." Their fingers laced together, the warmth of his touch grounding her. For the first time, she let herself imagine it too, the life they could have, free from Adrian's shadow. And for the first time, it didn't feel impossible. As the fire dimmed, Amara leaned against Daniel's shoulder, her eyes drifting shut. His arm came around her instinctively, holding her close. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, so soft she almost thought she dreamed it. In that moment, with the warmth of his body and the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek, she realized something she could no longer deny. Whatever storms lay ahead, she didn't fear them anymore. Not as long as Daniel was beside her. The days that followed carried a strange softness, as though the house itself had exhaled. After years of silence, longing and restraint, Amara and Daniel had slipped into something fragile but real. It wasn't a declaration, not yet. It was the way Daniel brushed her hand as he passed her the twins' bottles, the way Amara lingered when their eyes met across the dinner table, the way laughter bloomed easily now, filling spaces once cold and hollow. But underneath it all lay the steady hum of inevitability. This couldn't last forever. One evening, the twins refused to sleep. Amara rocked them gently while Daniel sat at the edge of the bed, his deep voice weaving a story about knights and castles. "You're good at this," Amara whispered once the babies finally drifted off, lulled by his voice. Daniel smiled faintly. "My mother used to tell me stories when I couldn't sleep. Guess I learned to pass it on." She tilted her head. "You'll have to teach me some. I think they like your voice better." He chuckled, low and warm. "Doubt that. They love their mother more than anything." Her heart squeezed. "They love you too, Daniel. You know that, don't you?" His eyes softened, shadows flickering there. "I hope so." Before she could reply, a sudden impulse overtook her. She leaned forward and pressed a kiss to his cheek. His breath caught, his body tensing, but he didn't pull away. For a moment, neither spoke. The air was thick with unspoken things, hearts beating too loud. The next afternoon, Amara wandered into the music room, a space long neglected. The grand piano gleamed in the sunlight, its keys untouched for years. Daniel found her there, fingers brushing the keys. "I didn't know you played." She smiled wistfully. "I used to. Before everything." "Play something," he urged gently. She hesitated, then began. The melody was hesitant at first, then smoother, filling the room with aching beauty. Daniel leaned against the doorway, watching her, his expression unreadable. When the final note faded, silence lingered. Amara looked up, cheeks flushed. "It's been years." Daniel stepped closer, his voice hushed. It sounded like home. Her throat tightened. "Everything you say feels like a promise." He shook his head, his voice rough. "Everything I say is a warning." But when she reached for his hand, he didn't pull away. That night, after putting the twins down, they sat on the balcony together, the city lights glittering below. Amara wrapped herself in a shawl, and Daniel draped his jacket over her shoulders without a word. She smiled faintly. "You always take care of me." He looked out at the skyline, his jaw tense. "Because I can't stop myself." Her breath caught. "Daniel." He turned to her then, eyes burning, voice low. "Tell me not to. Tell me to walk away, and I will." Her lips trembled, her eyes shimmering. "I can't." The silence stretched, electric, dangerous. For a moment, it felt like he might close the space between them, might finally let go of all the restraint. But instead, he leaned back, exhaling sharply. "Then God help us both." Her chest ached with the weight of it, the love between them undeniable, yet still caged. The next morning brought lightness again. Daniel joined Amara and the twins for breakfast, making silly faces that sent the children into fits of giggles. Amara laughed so hard her sides hurt, watching him pretend to be a dragon who stole their toast. For a little while, it was easy to believe this was what life could be, messy, warm, full of laughter and belonging. Amara caught his eye across the table, and he gave her a small secret smile. Her heart fluttered. This wasn't just a bond anymore. This was love, steady, undeniable, waiting for the moment it could finally be named. That night, Amara stood over the twins' crib, her hand pressed to her heart. Daniel lingered in the doorway, watching her with an expression so tender it made her want to cry. She whispered without looking at him, "Sometimes I think this is how it was always meant to be. You, me, and them." Daniel's breath caught, but he didn't answer. Instead, he stepped into the room, standing beside her, their shoulders brushing. For now, words weren't needed. But both knew the bond was no longer fragile. It was unbreakable, which meant the shatter point was coming. The warmth of Act 6 had carried them for days, until it didn't. It began innocuously, like most fractures do. Adrian's shadow stretched longer over their lives, his silence becoming more dangerous than his presence. And in that silence, seeds of doubt began to sprout. Amara found it one morning, tucked between bills and the stack of mail Daniel had left on the counter. The envelope bore Adrian's handwriting, sharp and familiar, her name etched in a way that sent a chill down her spine. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Amara, you think Daniel is different. But tell me, has he told you everything? Has he told you that before you were mine, you were almost his? That he wanted you first? That he stood by and let me take what he wanted? What kind of man lets his cousin marry the woman he loves? A coward. And what kind of woman builds a life on lies she doesn't even know she's living? The truth will ruin you, Amara. And when it does, he'll be the one to blame." Her knees buckled. She gripped the counter, her breath coming fast. Daniel had feelings for her before Adrian? He'd loved her first? The ground beneath her feet shifted. When Daniel entered the kitchen minutes later, coffee mug in hand, she could barely look at him. "Amara? What's wrong?" His voice was calm, concerned. She shoved the letter at him, her voice shaking. "Is it true?" Daniel read the letter in silence, his jaw tightening with each word. When he finally set it down, his face was pale. "Yes," he said simply. The truth in that single word cut deeper than any lie could have. "You loved me before Adrian," she whispered. "And you never told me." His eyes closed briefly. "I didn't want to. It didn't matter once he chose you." Her chest constricted. "Didn't matter? Daniel, my entire life has been—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "Why didn't you fight for me?" His eyes flashed with pain. "Because you looked happy, Amara. And I thought, God, I thought maybe Adrian could give you the life I couldn't. I didn't want to ruin that." Her laugh was bitter, sharp. "Happy? You saw me waste away in a marriage built on control and cruelty. And all this time you," she broke off, her voice trembling. "You let me believe I had no choice." Daniel stepped closer, his voice urgent. "Amara, it wasn't like that. She cut him off, shaking her head. "Do you know what it feels like to realize the man who's been my anchor, the only one I trust, has been hiding this from me? To think that all of this, everything between us, was born out of something you buried instead of shared." His face crumpled. "I thought I was protecting you." Her tears fell hot and fast. "No, Daniel. You were protecting yourself." The silence that followed was unbearable. That night, the tension fractured further. The twins fussed endlessly, sensing the storm in the house. Amara rocked them in her arms while Daniel hovered nearby, wanting to help but unable to bridge the distance she'd built. Finally, she snapped. "Stop looking at me like that." His brow furrowed. "Like what?" "Like I'm slipping through your fingers." "Maybe I am. Maybe I should." His voice broke. "Don't say that." She turned on him, her pain spilling into anger. "Why shouldn't I? I married the wrong man because you didn't speak up. I suffered for years while you stayed silent. And now I don't know if I can trust a single thing you've ever done." Daniel flinched as though she'd struck him. "That's not fair." "Fair." She laughed bitterly. "Nothing about this has ever been fair. You had a chance to change it, and you didn't. And now," her voice cracked, "now you want me to believe this is real?" His hands clenched at his sides, his control slipping. "It is real, Amara. Everything I've done for you, for the twins, it's real. My silence doesn't erase that." She shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "But it does change it." The fight didn't end that night. It stretched into the next day, the air heavy with words left unsaid. Finally, in the garden, it broke. Amara stood among the roses, her hands trembling as she tried to steady her breath. Daniel approached, his face etched with exhaustion and sorrow. "Amara," he began softly. She cut him off, her voice raw. "Don't. Please don't. I can't keep doing this push and pull, this half-truths and almost confessions. I need stability. For me. For the twins. And right now, I don't know if I can find that with you." The words shattered him. His chest rose and fell rapidly, his hands flexing helplessly at his sides. "So what are you saying?" Her voice cracked. "I'm saying I need space. I need time to think." Daniel's throat worked, his eyes glistening. He nodded once, stiffly. "If that's what you need." He turned and walked away, each step heavy, final. Amara sank to the ground among the roses, tears soaking the earth. For the first time, she wondered if love, this love, was worth the pain it carried. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling while the twins slept peacefully beside her. Daniel's absence in the next room felt like a wound, raw and gaping. The bond they had built so carefully had been torn apart in a single strike of truth. And somewhere in the darkness, Adrian was waiting, ready to twist that fracture into something irreversible. The fracture between them widened with every passing day. What had once been a sanctuary now felt like a house divided, Amara in her silence, Daniel in his distance. And into that silence, Adrian came. It was late afternoon when Amara heard the knock. She opened the door to find Adrian standing there, impeccably dressed, his smirk as sharp as the chill in the autumn air. "Hello, Amara," he said smoothly, his voice dripping with false warmth. Her stomach twisted. "What are you doing here?" "I heard you and my dear cousin had disagreements." His smile widened. "I thought you might need someone to talk to. Someone who actually understands you." Amara's instinct screamed to slam the door, but exhaustion weighed her down. Against her better judgment, she let him in. They sat across from each other in the living room, tension crackling like static. Adrian's eyes roamed the space, lingering on the toys, the faint traces of Daniel everywhere. "You've built a little world for yourself here," he said, almost mocking. "But it's fragile, isn't it? One secret, and it all comes crashing down." Amara clenched her fists. "What do you want, Adrian?" He leaned forward, his voice lowering. "To remind you who Daniel really is. He loved you first, Amara. He wanted you before I ever touched you. But he let me take you. What kind of man does that? And now he's circling back, picking up what was left behind, hoping you'll forget he stood by when you needed him most. Her throat burned. Stop. But he wasn't finished. He'll never love you without guilt. And you'll never look at him without wondering what might have been if he had fought for you. That doubt, it'll eat you alive. Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let him see her break. Leave, Adrian. He smirked, standing. You can push me out, but the truth will stay. Daniel failed you once. He'll fail you again. As the door closed behind him, Amara sagged against it, her whole body trembling. When Daniel returned that evening, he immediately sensed something wrong. Amara's eyes were red, her shoulders tight. What happened? He asked quietly. She hesitated. Then, unable to contain it, she burst out, Adrian came. Daniel froze, his expression darkening. He what? He was here, she whispered. He said things about you. About how you let him take me, how you stood by and did nothing. Daniel's fists clenched, rage flashing across his face. That bastard. But Amara cut him off, her voice raw. Was he wrong? The words hit like a knife. Daniel's anger faltered, replaced by anguish. Amara. She stepped back, tears streaming. I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know you anymore. His chest rose and fell rapidly. For a moment, he seemed about to fight, to plead. But then something in him broke. If that's truly how you feel, he said hoarsely, then maybe I should go. Her breath caught. Daniel. But he was already turning away, his shoulders heavy, his silence louder than any argument. The house felt colder after he left. Amara moved through the rooms like a ghost, the twins her only anchor. At night, she sat awake, staring at the empty space where Daniel used to be, her heart aching with a loneliness she hadn't felt in years. She hated Adrian for planting the doubt. She hated Daniel for letting it grow. And most of all, she hated herself for not knowing which voice to believe, her heart or her fear. Meanwhile, Daniel wandered the city like a man without purpose. He sat in bars nursing untouched drinks, his mind replaying every word Amara had thrown at him, every truth he had failed to speak sooner. Adrian's voice echoed in his head. He'll never love you without guilt. Daniel slammed the glass down and left. He couldn't drown this pain. He could only endure it. But the thought of Amara alone, vulnerable, haunted him. And the fear of Adrian worming his way back into her life was unbearable. Still he stayed away, because she had asked for space, and it was the only way he could prove he respected her choice, even if it killed him. One night, Amara sat by the twins' cribs, her hand pressed over her heart. They stirred in their sleep, their tiny breaths soft and steady. She whispered, "What am I doing? What if I've pushed away the only man who's ever truly been here for us?" Her tears dripped onto the floor, silent and unrelenting. The weight of her choices pressed down until she could barely breathe. She realized then that Adrian hadn't just poisoned her trust in Daniel, he had poisoned her trust in herself. The house was silent, Daniel absent, Adrian lurking, and Amara trapped between love and doubt. It was the lowest point, two souls who belonged together standing worlds apart, torn not by lack of love, but by the truths and lies that bound them. And in the shadows, Adrian smiled. Because broken hearts were easier to claim. The rift was now a chasm. Neither Amara nor Daniel knew how to bridge it, and Adrian was determined they never would. 2 days after Daniel left the house, Amara received another letter. This one wasn't handwritten. It was typed cold, precise. Inside were photographs. One showed Daniel watching her from across the garden, eyes filled with longing. Another caught him carrying the twins, his face so tender it almost hurt to look at. And then, one of her and Daniel together on the balcony, their shoulders brushing, their closeness unmistakable. The final note read, "Do you see it now? He's been circling you for years. You were never free of him. He's built his life around taking what was mine. He's no better than me." Amara's hands shook violently as she dropped the photographs. Adrian was twisting the truth, but the images made her feel exposed, fragile, like her every move had been watched. She sank to the floor, her body curling in on itself. Meanwhile, Daniel stormed into Adrian's office downtown, rage barely contained. "You went to her," Daniel growled. Adrian leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Of course I did. Someone had to tell her the truth you were too much of a coward to admit." Daniel slammed his fist onto the desk. "You don't get to talk about her. You don't get to twist this." Adrian's smile widened. "I didn't twist anything. I just showed her what was always there, that you wanted her. That you let me have her first. What does that make you, Daniel? Noble? Or pathetic?" Daniel's chest heaved. "You destroyed her once. You won't do it again." Adrian's eyes glittered with malice. "And yet you're doing it for me. She'll never trust you now. She'll always wonder if you only stayed silent to keep her close enough to claim when I was done." Daniel's fists clenched, every muscle in his body screaming to strike, but he forced himself still. "You'll regret this." Adrian chuckled. "I already don't." That evening, Amara tried to feed the twins, but her hand shook so badly the spoon clattered to the floor. She pressed her forehead to the table, whispering, "I can't do this." Her mind raced with conflicting images: Daniel's kindness, his patience, the way he loved the twins, Adrian's words, the photographs, the truths Daniel had buried. Love and betrayal swirled together until she couldn't tell them apart. When Daniel appeared at the door later that night, her heart lurched, but instead of relief, a cold panic rose. "Amara," he said softly, his face etched with exhaustion. She stepped back, shaking her head. "Don't." His brows furrowed. "Don't what?" "Don't come here, don't talk, don't make it harder than it already is." He looked stricken. "Amara, please. Whatever Adrian told you, whatever he showed you, it's a lie twisted around the truth. You know me. You know who I am." Her tears spilled over. "Do I?" Her voice cracked. "Because right now, I don't know anything anymore." The silence between them was unbearable. Finally, Daniel whispered, "Then I'll go." And this time when he left, Amara didn't call him back. 2 days later, Adrian appeared again, this time when Amara was in the garden with the children. He leaned casually against the gate, his smile predatory. "They look like me, don't they?" Amara froze, pulling the stroller closer. "Get out." Adrian's eyes darkened. "You think Daniel's your savior, but he's not. He's just the shadow I cast. He'll never step into the light, Amara. He'll always be the man who let me take you first." Amara's chest heaved. "You don't get to stand here and talk about them. About me." He tilted his head. "Then tell me, when they grow up, will you tell them the truth? That their father abandoned them, and the man raising them was too weak to claim you until it was too late." Her hand trembled on the stroller handle, fury blazing. "Get out." Adrian smirked, but this time he obeyed, retreating slowly. His words, however, lingered like poison. Across town, Daniel sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by silence. He hadn't slept in days. Every memory of Amara replayed in his head, her laugh, her tears, her whispered feels like home. And every time, Adrian's voice cut through. "You let me take her. You failed her once. You'll fail her again. Daniel pressed his palms over his eyes, whispering, I can't lose her. Not like this. But for the first time, he didn't know how to fight. The bond between them lay in ruins, Amara consumed by doubt, Daniel drowning in guilt, and Adrian circling like a vulture. It felt like the end. The love that had begun as fragile hope now seemed shattered beyond repair. And yet, beneath the wreckage, the faintest ember still burned, waiting for the moment one of them would choose to reach for it. The silence that followed the shatter was louder than any argument. It filled the house, the streets, their hearts. Neither Amara nor Daniel could escape it. The nights were the hardest. Amara lay in bed, the twins sleeping peacefully beside her, and stared at the ceiling. The space Daniel used to fill ached with emptiness. She could still feel the warmth of him, the steadiness, the safety, but it was gone, replaced by doubt she couldn't silence. She replayed Adrian's words, the photographs, the confession Daniel had made. But louder than all of it was the memory of Daniel's voice whispering, Don't make me want what I can't have. Tears welled. Was I cruel to push him away? Or was I right to need the truth first? She rose and went to the nursery, watching the twins breathe. Their little hands curled into fists, their faces peaceful. She whispered, What do I tell you when you're old enough to ask? Who do I say he is? Who do I say Daniel is? The silence gave no answer. Across the city, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, his head in his hands. He hadn't shaved in days, hadn't eaten more than scraps. He thought of Amara's tears, her broken voice when she'd said, I don't know you anymore. His chest ached. She was right. He hadn't let her know him. He'd hidden the truth, thinking silence was protection. But silence had been its own kind of betrayal. He whispered into the empty room, I should have told you. I should have fought. For the first time, Daniel allowed himself to remember the night Adrian had introduced her at that party years ago, the way Amara had smiled, the way his chest had clenched with something he didn't dare name. He had wanted her then. He had wanted her every day since. And he had chosen silence. Now that silence might cost him everything. Amara stood before the bathroom mirror one morning, her reflection pale and tired. She touched her face, seeing the cracks in her strength. Who are you? She whispered. A woman who believes a liar's poison? Or a woman who trusts her own heart? She thought of Daniel with the twins, his laugh, his patience, his tenderness. She thought of Adrian's sneer, his manipulations. Her chest tightened. One man had abandoned her. The other had stayed. Which truth mattered more? Daniel pulled out a blank sheet of paper, his hand trembling as he began to write. Amara, I should have told you long ago. The truth is, I loved you before Adrian ever touched your hand. I loved you in silence, because I thought it was better for you. I thought I was giving you happiness. But I see now that my silence wasn't sacrifice, it was cowardice. And it cost you everything. If I've lost you forever, I deserve it. But know this, everything I've done since, every bottle fed, every sleepless night, every laugh and every tear, I did because I love you. Not as Adrian's cousin. Not as a replacement. But as me. Daniel. His hand shook as he set the pen down. He didn't send the letter. He folded it and placed it in a drawer, too afraid of what her answer might be. One night, Amara dreamed. She stood in the garden, the twins playing by her side. Daniel approached, sunlight in his eyes, a daisy in his hand. He tucked it into her hair and whispered, "Feels like home." She woke with tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart aching with longing. The dream wasn't a warning, it was a memory. A truth she couldn't deny. Her whisper filled the dark. "I love you." In their separate worlds, Both Amara and Daniel stood at the edge of choice. Pride or vulnerability? Fear or truth? Neither knew what the other would choose. But both knew the next step would decide everything. The storm that had separated them didn't pass quickly. It lingered, heavy, gray, and unrelenting, until even silence felt like another form of grief. But storms always press toward a break. And in the quiet aftermath, choices stir. Daniel stared at his phone for a full hour before pressing Amara's name. His thumb trembled over the green icon. He hit it. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then the call ended. He sat back, throat tight. His heart screamed, coward. He pressed the heels of his palms into his eyes. He wanted to hear her voice. He wanted to tell her everything, but fear gripped him like chains. What if she refused to listen? What if his call only hurt her more? He whispered into the quiet, "Please, just one chance." That same evening, Amara took the twins for a walk in the park. They squealed from their stroller, pointing at ducks by the pond. She smiled for them, but her heart was heavy. Every bench, every tree, every stretch of grass seemed haunted by Daniel's presence. He had pushed the stroller here. He had pointed out those ducks. He had made them laugh until her cheeks hurt from smiling. And now gone. She stopped walking and sat on a bench, staring at the pond's ripples. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, scrolled to his name. Her thumb hovered. One word burned on her tongue, "Why?" But the fear that his silence would answer louder than any words kept her still. She locked the phone and tucked it away, whispering to the twins, "Not yet." That night, Daniel unfolded the letter he had written but never sent. His chest ached as he read the words back to himself. "I loved you before Adrian ever touched your hand." He folded it again, slid it into an envelope, and wrote her name. He drove across the city, parked outside her home, and sat gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles whitened. The lights were off in her windows. The house was still. Daniel sat there, trembling, then finally stepped out. He walked to the porch, set the envelope down, and froze. A memory struck, Amara's voice breaking as she asked, "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Would this letter heal? Or would it be too little, too late?" With shaking hands, he picked it back up and shoved it into his jacket pocket. He couldn't risk it, not yet. Meanwhile, Adrian wasn't silent. He called Amara one afternoon, his voice low, honeyed, calculated. "I heard Daniel's been quiet. That doesn't surprise me. He always folds when things matter most. Unlike me." Amara's chest tightened. "Why are you calling me?" "Because you deserve someone who doesn't hide," Adrian said smoothly. "I may have made mistakes, but at least I never pretended to be something I'm not." His words stung. They pressed against her doubts, poked at her pain. But then she looked at the twins, who were playing with blocks on the floor. She remembered Daniel's laughter filling their little world. And she whispered, almost to herself, "At least he stayed." Adrian heard it. His voice turned cold. "That won't last. He'll break you, Amara. Just wait." She hung up before he could say more. But the echo of his warning clung like smoke. Days later, fate gave them a cruel twist. Amara was at the market, pushing the twin stroller, when she looked up and saw him, Daniel, standing at the end of the aisle, holding a carton of milk. Their eyes locked. The world fell away. The clatter of carts, the chatter of voices, all silenced under the weight of what neither dared to speak. Daniel took one step forward. Amara's lips parted, but no words came. Her pulse thundered. He stopped halfway, fear warring with longing. She clutched the stroller handle, unable to move closer, unable to turn away. The twins giggled, waving tiny hands at Daniel. His eyes softened, breaking him apart. And then a stranger's cart rolled between them, breaking the moment. By the time it passed, Amara had turned away, her chest heaving. Daniel stood frozen, the milk shaking in his hand. That night, Amara sat on the nursery floor, watching the twins sleep. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "I can't keep running. I can't keep wondering. I need to know." She rose, walked to the living room, and picked up her phone. For the first time in weeks, she didn't hesitate. She typed, "We need to talk." Her thumb hovered over the send button. Her chest burned with fear. She hit send. When Daniel saw her message, he dropped his glass of water. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't care. His hands shook as he typed back, "Name the place. Name the time." Seconds passed. Then her reply appeared. "Tomorrow. Noon. The park." Daniel's heart pounded, but for the first time in weeks, there was a flicker of hope. Two people, broken and raw, had taken the first step. The choice was no longer silence. It was confrontation, vulnerability, and a chance, no matter how fragile, for healing. The storm hadn't cleared, but the horizon glowed faintly. Tomorrow would decide everything. The park was quiet that afternoon. Noon sun filtered through the branches of tall oaks, scattering flecks of gold across the benches and the walking paths. Families wandered by, laughter floating through the air, but for Amara, the world felt narrowed into one small stretch of grass and the bench where she stood waiting. The twins were with her mother. Today had to be about this, about him, about them. Her palms sweated. She twisted her scarf in her hands, heart pounding like it might burst. Every second that passed made her want to run, but her feet wouldn't move. She told herself she could leave. She told herself she could vanish before he came, but she knew she wouldn't. She needed this. Daniel spotted her from across the park. For a moment, he stopped walking. The sight of her hit him like a blow, fragile yet strong, her hair catching the light, her shoulders drawn tight as if she carried the weight of the world alone. He took a slow breath. Each step toward her felt like wading through water. By the time he reached her, his heart was a storm in his chest. "Amara," he said softly. Her eyes lifted, colliding with his. The air between them charged, too heavy to breathe. "Daniel," she whispered. For a long moment, neither spoke. Amara broke the silence. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? About everything. The truth about your feelings, about Adrian, about what was real and what wasn't." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because I thought silence would protect you. I thought if I stayed in the shadows, you'd have the life you deserved. And when Adrian married you, I thought it was over for me. That my feelings didn't matter." Her eyes burned. "But they mattered to me. They matter now. And you kept them buried while I doubted myself, doubted us. Do you know how much that hurt?" "I know," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "And I'll carry that mistake for the rest of my life." She turned away, staring at the fountain nearby, the water glittering in sunlight. Her voice trembled. "I was ready to believe Adrian's lies because you stayed silent. I asked myself if I'd been blind, if I'd been a fool all over again." Daniel took a step closer. "You weren't blind. You weren't a fool. You were abandoned once, Amara, and I swore I'd never be another man who broke you. But in trying not to, I became one anyway." Her breath hitched. She turned back, meeting his eyes. He whispered, "I love you. I always have. From the moment Adrian introduced you, I wanted to reach for you. But I didn't. I couldn't. And I've lived with that choice every day since." Tears welled in her eyes. "Do you know what that does to me? To hear that now? To realize I could have been loved differently, honestly, from the start. Daniel's throat closed. If I could rewrite it all, I would. I'd tell you everything that night at the party. I'd fight Adrian. I'd never let you cry alone in that hospital room. But I can't rewrite it, Amara. All I can do is beg for the chance to love you right from here forward. Her tears spilled. And if I give you that chance, what happens when I break again? When the weight is too heavy? Daniel reached, slowly, carefully, and brushed his fingertips against her hand. Then I'll carry it with you, even if it breaks me. The world went quiet. Children's laughter faded, the fountain hushed, the breeze stilled. Her hand trembled under his touch, but she didn't pull away. For the first time in weeks, she let herself feel the warmth of him. Her whisper broke the silence. You stayed. I stayed, he said. A sob cracked from her chest. She turned fully, her hand clutching his. Don't you dare leave me again. Don't you dare vanish when it hurts. Daniel's eyes glistened. Never. Not again. You'll have to throw me out yourself. Her laugh came through tears, broken but real. She pressed her forehead against his chest, her fists gripping his shirt. I hate you for making me love you this much. His arms wrapped around her, holding her like she was air. His voice trembled into her hair. Then hate me forever. Just don't let go. When she lifted her face, their eyes locked. No more words. No more hesitation. Their lips met, slow, aching, and desperate. It wasn't the kiss of new love, but of love that had survived silence, betrayal, and storm. A love that had been buried, clawed through pain, and risen again. When they broke apart, Amara's voice was steady. Then it's decided. We move forward. Together. Daniel nodded, tears streaming freely. Together. As they sat on the park bench, hand in hand, the sun broke fully through the clouds. It bathed them in gold, as though the universe itself had decided to mark this moment. The storm wasn't gone. Adrian's shadow still loomed. But they had chosen. And in that choice, there was power, there was healing, and there was the first breath of forever. The park kiss lingered in Amara's mind long after she and Daniel parted that day. It hadn't solved everything, hadn't magically erased the lies, the silence, or the scars Adrian had carved into her life. But it had given her something more powerful than all of that, certainty. For the first time since the night she gave birth alone, she believed she wasn't truly alone. The next morning, Daniel showed up at her doorstep. Not with flowers. Not with grand declarations. But with breakfast balanced in his hands and a sheepish smile on his face. I didn't want you starting the day without eating, he said, lifting the bag like proof. And I thought maybe I could stay, if you'll let me. Her heart clenched. She stepped aside. You're late. The twins already asked for pancakes. His grin widened, relief washing through him. Lucky for us, I brought pancakes. The kitchen filled with the smell of syrup and butter, the sound of little giggles, and the rhythm of Daniel's low hum as he cut tiny bites for the twins. Amara leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching him. There was no trace of hesitation in the way he moved, no half-heartedness. He wasn't a visitor. He belonged. Why are you looking at me like that? Daniel asked, glancing up with a crooked smile. She shrugged. Just trying to decide if you look more like a father or a chef. His eyes softened. I don't care what I look like. I just care that I'm here. The words sank into her, quiet and deep. But peace never lasted long. That evening, Adrian appeared. Not at the door, not with flowers or apologies. He never had those. He cornered Amara in the grocery store parking lot as she loaded bags into the trunk, the twins giggling in their seats. His voice was sharp. "So it's true. You've let him crawl into my place." Amara stiffened, her hand gripping the cart. "You forfeited that place the night you left me alone in that hospital." Adrian sneered. "And you think Daniel's better? He's weak. He hides behind silence. He'll fail you the moment it matters." Her jaw tightened. "He hasn't failed me yet." Adrian's smirk faltered. "So you've chosen him." "I've chosen the man who chose us," she shot back, closing the trunk with a decisive slam. Adrian's eyes darkened, but Daniel's voice cut through the tension. "Leave." He was standing at the edge of the lot, fists clenched, eyes blazing. Adrian scoffed but stepped back. "This isn't over." Amara slid her hand into Daniel's as he came closer. For once, she wasn't trembling. That night, Amara dreamed again. But this time, it wasn't the nightmare of childbirth alone. She was back in the hospital bed, but when she turned her head, Daniel was there, hand in hers, eyes steady, voice whispering, "I'm not leaving." She woke with tears streaming down her cheeks. But they weren't tears of grief. They were relief. The wound was healing. Days later, as Daniel and Amara played with the twins on the living room floor, one of them babbled, then formed a sound that froze them both. "Da-da." Amara's eyes widened. She looked at Daniel, whose face crumpled as though he'd been struck. The twins giggled, clapping their tiny hands, repeating it, "Da-da." Daniel laughed through tears, scooping them into his arms. "I'm right here. I'll always be right here." Amara's chest ached with joy. She whispered, "They know. They already know who stayed." A week later, Amara developed a fever. The doctor said it was nothing serious, but the moment Daniel saw her pale and sweating, panic clawed at him. Memories surged, the hospital, her screams, the empty doorway where Adrian should have been. Daniel gripped her hand, voice breaking. "I'm not leaving this room. Not for 1 second. Not until you're safe." Amara smiled weakly through the fever. "Daniel. I know. I believe you." And as she drifted into sleep, her hand in his, she knew the cycle was broken. The wound of abandonment had been rewritten with presence, with love. For Amara, the choice had been made. For Daniel, the vow had been sealed. Adrian's shadow still lingered, but it no longer had the power to define them. They were moving forward. Together. The story of loss was becoming a story of love. And for the first time, Amara let herself believe it would last. The peace of their rebuilt home lasted barely a week before Adrian struck again. He didn't creep this time, didn't hide behind phone calls or sly remarks. He came in person, striding up the front walk like he still owned the ground beneath his feet. Amara saw him through the window as she folded laundry, and her chest tightened, not with fear, but with resolve. She wasn't the same woman who once trembled at his shadow. Daniel stepped out from the kitchen at the same time, noticing the set of her jaw. "He's here," he muttered. "I know." She placed the basket down, lifted her chin. "We face him. Together." Adrian didn't wait to be invited. He pushed the door open as if nothing had changed. "Cozy little picture," he sneered, eyes flicking over the toys on the floor, the folded clothes, the faint sound of the twins giggling upstairs. "I see you've replaced me fully." Daniel stepped forward, blocking his path. His voice was cold steel. "You were never replaced. You abandoned them. I stayed." Adrian's smile was venom. "Don't flatter yourself, cousin. You're nothing but my shadow, clinging to what I left behind." Amara's voice cut the air. "No. He's the man who showed up when you didn't. He's the one my children call father. That's more than you'll ever be." For the first time, Adrian faltered. His bravado cracked, just enough to show something beneath: bitterness, desperation, maybe even regret. "Amara," he said, his voice softer, "you don't understand. I made mistakes, but you were mine. We were supposed to be." She shook her head sharply. "No. We were never anything. You made sure of that the night you walked away. Whatever chance you had ended then." Adrian's gaze darkened, but his words sharpened into a knife. "And you think he'll never fail you? He lied to you, Amara. He kept the truth hidden because he knew you'd never choose him if you knew." Her chest tightened, but she didn't waver. "Maybe he did. But when I needed him, he stayed. He carried me through the worst. That truth matters more than the silence." Daniel's hand brushed hers, grounding her. Adrian's face twisted. "You'll regret this. You'll both regret shutting me out. I built everything Daniel has. The business, the fortune, the name. He owes all of it to me. Without me, he's nothing." Daniel stepped forward, his voice low, steady, unflinching. "You're wrong. Without you, I'm finally free. Free to build something better, with her, with the twins, with honesty. You can take the money, the name, the empire. I don't care. What I have now is worth more than all of it." Adrian's sneer collapsed into silence. For the first time, he had no weapon left. No words, no power. Just emptiness. The silence stretched until Adrian finally scoffed, masking his defeat. "Pathetic," he muttered, turning on his heel. "Rot together, then." The door slammed behind him. Amara exhaled, trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of release. Daniel pulled her into his arms. "It's over. He can't touch us anymore." She buried her face in his chest. "Not when we're together." That evening, after the twins were asleep, Amara and Daniel sat on the porch, the night air cool and calm around them. She whispered, "I used to think he'd haunt me forever. That no matter how far I ran, Adrian's shadow would follow. But tonight, I finally felt it lift." Daniel pressed a kiss to her hair. "Because you faced him. Because we faced him. And now there's nothing left to fear." Her fingers laced with his. "You know what's funny? For the first time, I don't feel like the woman who was abandoned. I feel like the woman who was chosen." Daniel's throat tightened. "You were always chosen. I was just too blind, too afraid to say it." She smiled through tears. "Not anymore." The house was quiet, the storm gone. In the silence, there was peace, not the fragile peace of avoidance, but the steady peace of choice. Adrian had left, and with him, the last tie to the pain of the past. What remained was Amara, Daniel, and the love that had survived every test. The days after Adrian's departure passed quietly, almost too quietly. It felt like waiting for an aftershock that never came. But slowly, Amara and Daniel began to realize that the storm truly had broken. The house felt different. Not haunted, not fragile. Whole. Sunlight streamed through the curtains one morning as the twins clambered over Daniel on the living room floor, shrieking with laughter. Amara stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching as Daniel let them climb his shoulders and pull his hair with fearless joy. His laugh was unguarded, full, the sound of a man who no longer carried the weight of shadows. "You're going to spoil them," she teased. Daniel looked up, his grin wide. "Isn't that the point?" Her chest warmed. She walked over, sinking onto the rug beside them. The twins immediately crawled into her lap, babbling stories only they understood. For a moment, it was just them, no ghosts, no wounds, just family. That night, however, Amara woke with chills. Her fever had returned, hotter this time, burning through her skin. Daniel shot awake the moment he touched her forehead. Panic surged in his chest. The hospital came back in flashes, Amara screaming, Adrian's absence, his own helplessness. But this time, he refused to be paralyzed. He wrapped her in blankets, whispered to her even as she drifted in and out. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Not ever again. He carried her to the car, the twins bundled safely with his mother, and rushed to the hospital. The fluorescent lights, the sharp scent of antiseptic, the distant beeps of machines, it all clawed at Daniel's chest. The memory of that night years ago pressed hard against him. But then Amara's hand squeezed his. Weak, trembling, but steady. Her eyes fluttered open, finding him. You stayed, she whispered. Daniel bent his forehead to hers, tears hot on his face. I'll always stay. I'll sit here until the walls crumble if I have to. And he did. Through the night, through the hours of waiting, he held her hand, stroked her hair, whispered love into every silence. By morning, the fever broke. The doctor assured them it was a simple infection, nothing lasting, nothing dangerous. Relief crashed through Daniel so hard he nearly collapsed. When Amara opened her eyes fully, her strength returning, Daniel kissed her hand. You don't know what you just gave me, he whispered. Her smile was tired but radiant. A chance to keep your promise. Later that day, the twins toddled into the hospital room, their grandmother behind them. They ran straight to the bed, climbing up clumsily beside Amara, their giggles filling the sterile air. Dada! One shouted, pointing at Daniel. Mama! The other echoed. Daniel's chest tightened as he looked at them, his family, his everything. Amara wrapped an arm around both children, her eyes glistening. This is what home looks like. Daniel kissed her temple. This is forever. Weeks later, Amara and Daniel stood in the nursery together, repainting the walls a soft shade of gold. The twins toddled around with tiny brushes dipped in water, pretending to help. Daniel glanced at Amara, paint smudged on her cheek, laughter in her eyes. I was thinking, he said softly, about starting something new. Not Adrian's business. Something ours. A future that belongs to us, not to his name. Amara's smile deepened. I'd like that. To finally live without his shadow. They stood in the golden room, hands intertwined, dreams stretching out before them. Months later, in a small garden blooming with wildflowers, Daniel and Amara spoke their vows. No crowd of socialites, no grand spectacle. Just close family, a few friends, and the twins toddling down the aisle as ring-bearers. Daniel's voice shook as he said, I vow never to leave your side. Not in silence, not in fear. You are my choice, Amara. My only choice. Amara's tears fell freely as she replied, and I vow never to doubt the love we've fought to keep. You are my home, Daniel. You stayed. You always stayed. When they kissed, the crowd cheered, but Amara only heard the sound of her children's laughter and the steady beat of Daniel's heart. That night, as they tucked the twins into bed, Amara sat on the edge of the mattress, stroking their hair. She glanced at Daniel. Do you remember? She asked softly. The night I gave birth. The emptiness. The fear. Daniel nodded, his hand tightening over hers. Her voice trembled, but this time with joy. It's gone now. That wound, it's healed. Because you rewrote it with everything you've given since. You've given me the ending I never thought I'd have. Daniel bent down, kissed her hand and whispered, no. This isn't an ending. It's the beginning. Later, when the house was quiet, Amara and Daniel stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching the twins sleep. Amara leaned her head on his shoulder. "Feels like home," she whispered. Daniel kissed the crown of her head. "Because it is. Because it always will be." The shadows were gone. The past was closed. What remained was love, chosen and lasting. And for the first time in a long winding journey, Amara believed in forever. After everything, abandonment, lies, betrayal, and healing, Amara finally found lasting love in the most unexpected place. Do you believe true love is about who chooses you first, or who chooses to stay? Drop your answer in the comments below.
Family, thank you for watching with us to the end. Your love and support keep this journey alive. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share so more hearts can join this family. And thank you in advance for doing so. It truly means the world. May peace, love, and joy never leave your home. Amen.